We're starting the show a little early today. Hey, welcome, Barbara. Come on in here. I actually talked to one of you guys today on the phone. Lydia Page, she called me, one of our paid subscribers. We're going to start to do more stuff like that to start to connect with our folks that are actually paid subscribers. We haven't made much of a distinction rather, between people who are paying for it and people who are just, trying to figure out what we are and what we're about. Hey, Minnesota, what's up? How are you? Come on in here. Welcome, welcome. We'll get the show kicked off in a couple minutes here. Hey, Maggie. Hey, Luz. Okay, good. We're just waiting for Angela Romero. We're going to kick off the show in just a couple minutes here. Wait for people to start joining in. One of the things that I'm learning here about, hey, Lynette, welcome. One of the things that I'm learning about Substack is the longer that you're live, the more people show up. So we end up having you know, dozens more viewers by the end of the show than we do at the start. Saludos, Cynthia. Oh, hey, Mesa, Arizona. Welcome to the house. Welcome to Nick Valencia Live. Welcome, everybody. Come on in here. We're going to get kicked off in a couple minutes here. I thought I'd start early. Yeah, please share the live. Natalie Hernandez is out in Los Angeles, and she's our number one hype person. She's working with the team here and helping get traction with our videos, helping stir up conversation in the chat. So if you could see her, that's Nat H. She is in the chat for us, and she's so good. She's so good at sharing our content and just connecting what we're doing with people in her network. And that's how this grows. This grows through you guys, through word of mouth, through, we really are proud of what we're doing, the content that we're putting out. We really feel like we're adding a lot of value with what we're bringing to the table. Quality journalism, really well produced content. It just needs to get in front of more eyeballs, guys. The great success that we had immediately, 9 weeks, I think this is in our 10th week now, we've had more than 10 million views across social media. That's more than 8 million views on Instagram, more than 2 million views on YouTube. We've had a recent clip on TikTok hit like 100,000 views. So we have got hundreds of thousands of views on these platforms and millions of views on these platforms. It's just building and growing. And I always talked about this when I was at CNN. Hey, Maggie, so good to see you too. Well, nice to see that you're in the chat. I can't really actually see you, but Maggie's one of my neighbors. We actually grew up playing with her son, Jacob. And so it's so lovely. When we launched this, she was one of the early supporters, her daughter, Hannah. And I thought I saw another Freed in there as well, and those early subscribers. So thank you guys so much. This is for you guys. This is really about you guys. I felt like I went from working, I said this in our last show, I felt like I went from working for a boss or a group of bosses to working for you guys and working for the public, working directly for the audience and sort of the market, as my agent used to call it. I don't have an agent anymore. It's all just a small team, but the market, as they used to say, has sort of already decided and told us what they want. They want vertical video. They want, everything is sort of in the palm of our hand. And we're not here to trash on legacy media. Mainstream media really taught me a lot about journalism. I mean, I landed here in Atlanta at 22 years old, and it was working at CNN that gave me the framework of what it meant to be a journalist. And times have changed, though. Things have evolved. People are watching the news differently. I think a lot of people, they were really impacted by COVID. I remember, I don't know, a lot of you guys remember being in your homes or wherever your pods were and being cooped up and sort of doom scrolling. I mean, I think Webster's dictionary coined a term called doom scrolling during that time, where it was just tragedy. And I think a lot of people got really, I know for me, drinking from that fire hose, it turned me off from the news for a little while. And I think we're seeing that still sort of be the case. So many people saw that tragedy and they were just the fire hose of doom, that they wanted to turn away. They stopped watching the news the way they used to. And then when they came back to started watching the news, things evolved. And what we're learning here on this platform is that media isn't just changing every single day, or every year rather, it's changing every single day. Media changes so fast, and the way people consume information is changing so fast. This is real news. This is where you're going to get the real news. You're going to get an unbought, unafraid, unapologetic, unfiltered perspective here. And we're a minute here from the start of the show. Let's just kick it off here. Hey, everybody, welcome, welcome. And if you're just joining us, I'm Nick Valencia. I'm an independent journalist and host of Nick Valencia Live. This is a relatively new platform that we started this summer, basically. A lot of you guys know the origin story of this. I was at CNN for 19 years, going on 20 years, and I left. A national correspondent for 12 years on national television, covering the biggest stories of our time. And I saw a need for someone like me to fill the void in the space that was out there. It's no secret that the Trump administration has made immigration its top priority. People can argue one of their top priorities, the economy being the other. But the militarization and the type of weapons that we're seeing now flood the streets of places like Southern California, really all across the country. But, it started as the testing ground there in Southern California. It has ratcheted up the level of enforcement in this country to a level that we really have never seen, or at least the optics that we've never seen before. I know the numbers, some would argue, under the Obama administration, the numbers were a lot higher. There was the moniker given to the former president of being the deporter in chief, something unfairly, but we did see a lot of deportations happen under that Democratic presidency. It is no secret that President Trump has made immigration one of his platform goals. We all remember that time in the middle of the summer, 2015, when he came down the golden escalator and he said that Mexicans were the worst of the worst. They brought over killers, criminals, rapists, the bad hombres, so to speak. And we've only seen his interest and his attention on immigration and illegal immigration grow during his presidency, during his candidacy as president. And we're now seeing an authoritative wing of his administration with carte blanche, basically, to do what they want. The gloves are off. And that's what the sources that we've talked to, that's what they've told us, that the gloves are off and that they are basically doing what they have always wanted to do. And that enforcement wing of the Trump administration is out there on the streets. We just got back from Utah. We were in Utah for several days covering the impact of what we see immigration there. The reason that we were out there is because I had a neighbor who told me that they needed help. They had a friend who was taken into custody by an ICE agent. That same ICE agent then 2 weeks later took into custody his father, and then now is focusing on his mother. That was the story that brought us to Utah. And when we got there, we were opened up into a world that possibly partly my ignorance, I didn't realize how many Latinos are in the state. You think of Utah and you sort of think of this like lily white area, right? Filled with Mormons, white faces. There is that. But then you step into a corner of West Valley City and it's like you're stepping into the street scenes of East LA. Cielito Lindo Bakery, I'm still craving, the coffee that I had there and the breakfast that I had there. It was like walking into a scene of East LA, you know? There are an estimated 300,000 immigrants in the state of Utah. A third of them are undocumented. The atmosphere of fear is so evident there. We met one of those interview subjects in the park. The whole time she was looking behind her shoulder. The whole time she was nervous about the possibility of her being followed, her being targeted. That's a circumstance for a lot of people. Kids going back to school. A 7-year-old girl who I talked to who it had been normalized for her that her peers told her that they were going to call ICE on her. And that was sort of part of this game that they were playing. Teachers that we spoke to said that their students at the end of last year stopped showing up. And they had to ask themselves the question, is the student not here because they're sick? Or are they not here because they've been deported? We wanted to drill down on the conversation and the impact of immigration. And we're doing that today with two trailblazers, two women who are leading the fight, are standing up for their community in the state of Utah. Representative Angela Romero, she's part of the National State Legislators Caucus. She has a national position. She has been a true believer in our work here on Nick Valencia Live. We're so grateful to have her as part of the show. And then joining her as well, State Senator Luz Escamilla. And State Senator Escamilla, she is a pioneer in the very true sense of the word. She's the first immigrant to be elected to the legislature in Utah, and she is making some dynamic moves here. So, familia, Nick Valencia News familia, let's start the show here, and let's bring in Representative Angela Romero, and also State Senator Escamilla. This is the most awkward part of the show here when I'm typing in the names and then I'm so close. Okay, I'm going to invite Representative Romero. There we go. And then let me also invite in Senator Luz Escamilla. Luz Escamilla. Let's see. I think I'm going to have Senator Escamilla, if you're in the chat, if you could tell me, waiting for Angela, it says. So I think Representative Romero, hopefully you join in here pretty soon. You can start talking to us, getting underway here. Greetings. Hello, New York. Hello, East Coast. Okay. So Angela Romero, and then, okay, Luz Escamilla. So that is so we're going to bring in Luz. We'll just put in Luz. Okay, space Escamilla. Esca. There we go. There's the state senator. Invite her in. Okay, cool. So we're waiting for the both of them to come on in. And Lydia Page. Hey, Lydia. Welcome to the show. Hey, everybody. Hope you guys are having a great Thursday. Okay, we're waiting on them to accept the invitation. And hopefully they accept it. And then we can get this conversation going here. All right. Yeah, drop in any questions, guys. If you have any questions, go ahead and drop them in the chat. We're going to get in a matter of moments here. I know they're just going to accept this. It's probably state senator. It's probably something popped up on your screen. You just hit accept when somebody invites it. If you're having some trouble, you could always log off and log back in. Hey, Saul. Hey, welcome, everybody. We're just waiting for Representative Angela Romero and State Senator Luz Escamilla to join the program. How's everybody's day while we're waiting on the two trailblazing lawmakers here joining the program? How's everybody's day here? You guys having a good one? I was on Instagram earlier today, right before coming on the show, and saw some really just awful video of what we believe at this point, and we're still working through these details as we're waiting for the state senator and representative to join. We're still waiting on these details, but it seems, at least from early reporting, early indications, were that a U.S. citizen was taken into custody in Simi Valley. And the video is just awful. It's this really, heightened, sort of charged video. People that are filming are telling them to keep their hands off this person as they're being taken into custody. The person saying that they're an American citizen. That's something, as soon as this conversation was done, that we were going to start looking into that to see what's going on there in Simi Valley. Hey, from Ontario. Hey, Ontario Piper, what's going on? All right, we're going to cancel the request and then we're going to see if this works out here. I don't have a problem holding air, guys. All right, let's do this and let's do this and let's invite the two co-hosts here. Hey, Piper. Let's get hot, especially when we're trying to work through technical problems. We're really excited, though. Thank you guys, everybody, for hanging out through us. Oh, here we go. All right. We got Luz, Senator Escamilla.
Yes.
There we go. I can hear you. I can see you.
Perfect. We got this. Thank you. Nick, thank you so much, and to your audience. Thank you for your patience. We're working through our technology stuff here, so thank you for that.
Well, one of the silver linings in all of this is that I think people like to see how the sausage is made and the behind the scenes. Now we are here and we got it all. You know what? We were just waiting for Mama Valencia to show up. Eliana Valencia is now here. So now that my mom is here, we really could get the show underway. We do this at 3:00 so she could watch at her noon lunch hour in Los Angeles.
Okay.
We gave you these introductions. I want to introduce you guys again. If you guys are just joining us, joining the program for the very first time, we're so grateful to have them. Two elected lawmakers out of state of Utah. We have Representative Angela Romero. She's part of the National State Legislators Caucus. And we also have State Senator Luz Escamilla. She made history by being the first immigrant elected to the state legislature in Utah. Let's kick off the conversation here. Luz, we'll start with you. You have been very outspoken about the president's mass deportation policy. What is the state of immigration right now? What is the state of living in the state for undocumented immigrants in Utah?
I think it's fair to say that no matter where you are in the United States, you are living in fear if you're an immigrant. And I mean, clearly our brothers and sisters that happen to be on out of status are living a I can't even imagine just the emotional stress that they have to live every day. But I think it's a message to everyone that is an immigrant or a new American or slightly looks on those profiles that they have, because now we know they're picking up U.S. citizens. So it's not only about immigrants; it's about anyone that doesn't fit whatever that criteria of this administration is, and the lack of just protection of the constitutional rights and civil rights of people. It is terrifying. It's never been like this in the last, I would say, 30 years that I've been, that both Representative Romero and myself been involved in community and advocacy. So to see this is heartbreaking. It is changing the whole way communities are interacting. They're just fear of even participating on basic things like going to church or um, going to school, dropping their kids at school for fear of not coming back. And those children living in fear. I was in a Spanish radio show last week, and the community pouring on saying how scared they were for starting a new school year and not able to drop their kids at school. That just comes it hits in a different level in the core of who we are as America, and to know that that's happening in 2025 is terrifying.
Education is such a fundamental part of getting out of where you are. It was education that got me out of Northeast LA. I was a first generation college student, and it opened up my world. Reading is so fundamental, and when you look at what really clearly seems like an attack on our community, Representative Romero, when you talk about education and when you see the impact that it's having on kids that are not wanting to go to school, or parents that are so fearful of dropping their children off or fear that they may be caught up in this raid or raids, what has been the impact through your eyes on education and the education system in the country and particularly Utah?
We've had a negative impact. The day after Trump was elected, one of our school districts, 100 kids didn't show up to school.
Wow.
And these were Latino kids. And the reason why they didn't show up to school is because their families were afraid. They were afraid that if they sent their kids to school, maybe the kids would come home and they wouldn't have anyone to be there for them. Or people are afraid to even go to the grocery stores in the neighborhood. Luz and I live in the heart of House District 25 and her Senate district. And our districts are minority majority. So people of color are the majority in our district, and 50% of our district is Latino, Latina. And so for us, we hear from teachers, we hear from schools, we hear from everyone. And sorry, I'm getting used to this new technology.
You're okay. You're
Cool
okay.
stuff are popping up, but we hear from families, and they're afraid. They're afraid to even go to church. They're afraid to send their kids to school. So we have seen a decline in kids coming to school. And I have neighbors that say they come home and their neighbors have disappeared, and they don't know if they've self-deported or if they've been picked up. And so the fear is here in Utah. I think people have this myth about who we are in Utah. I'm second generation Utah. My family's from New Mexico. My experience is a little bit different because I'm also Native American. But when people look at me and Luz, they don't distinguish the difference between us. And so I have to remind people, regardless of you, if you're newly arrived, regardless if you're in a mixed status family, regardless if your family has been here prior to 1848 in the Treaty of Guadalupe, Hidalgo, like mine, we are a target because people don't see the difference between us. And so we're seeing that fear amongst our Latino kids, but we also have a huge refugee population in our districts, and we're seeing that happen with these families as well. And so this political climate and this political theater has really impacted the communities we represent. And we're just really nervous about what's going to happen in the future when it comes to small businesses, when it comes to the education of our children, and how we move forward. And in the past, Utah has been very different. We had the Utah Compact, where we pledged to be supportive of comprehensive immigration reform. We talked to our national delegation, and they say they want to see comprehensive immigration reform. There are a lot of bills that Senator Escamilla was able to stop in the Senate this year with the help of the president of the Senate. The House is a little bit different. We're a little bit more rowdier. There's a little bit more political theater that goes on there. And we were able to kill some horrible bills that would have impacted our communities this last session in the Senate. But although Utah used to be the first when it came to education, we were one of the first states to offer in-state tuition. we just see all of that rolling back, and we see that with the election of Trump when he first was elected, and then the second time now we're seeing it even. People aren't afraid; they're not hiding behind um, masks now. They're just very direct and upfront about it.
Yeah, I mean, we see some of these suspected federal agents who are masked up, but you're right, you're talking about ordinary citizens who really feel emboldened, who really feel comfortable to say exactly what they've been thinking their whole lives in their head, and now they're coming out, right? And they're saying, speaking clearly what they feel. You pick up on political theater. This question is open ended for the both of you. Does it feel as though, because this, it's so clear to me that for Trump, optics are so important. He's a master manipulator of the media. He's this sort of WWE president that knows exactly how to get a stadium full of people riled up. Is it clear to you, talking about how different it is over the course of the last 30 years, is it clear to you that this is racial profiling of the Latino community?
Absolutely. I mean, and I think it's escalating. I mean, what we need to keep in mind is it all started with criminals, right? And certainly that has not been the operation, mode of operation that's happening. But now is the U.S. citizens. I mean, I think you were just reporting right before we joined you on
Yeah.
your live cup. I mean, we're seeing the cases of U.S. citizens, children, minors being. I mean, these are minors. They're supposed to have, an adult, a legal guardian to process them. They can't just pick them up like that. They are picking them up, and they are U.S. citizens. So it and it's Latinos is, again, if like Representative Romero was saying, if they look, if we fit in that criteria of what they think it is, an undocumented immigrant, you're gonna be picked. And it used to be before people talked about previous administrations and how many people were deported on process of deportation. But they were going and, for someone that they had a warrant, they had a process for that person.
Yeah.
Now it's like everyone, right? So if you, like in our communities, we go to those, the different tiendas con la comunidad, we're engaging there because that's our neighbors, that's our neighborhood. That's where things are happening. It's in the food banks that we're seeing some of these operations happening.
I was just in Azteca Market, the indoor bazaar and swap
Yeah.
meet. There was no
In
one
West
there.
Valley.
It was dead. It was
Yep.
empty. There's a watch repairman that was lucky if he made $20 a day. There's so many shops there that are empty. Representative Romero, to pick up on what Senator Escamilla was saying, what do you tell your constituents when the feds aren't playing by the rules? They're not playing by the rules. And so how do you inform, educate, prepare your constituents for these worst case scenarios?
I don't know if you can prepare anyone, and Senator
Yeah.
Escamilla and I, went to college together. I was first generation, as I mentioned earlier, and we met in college, and I was, the president of Mecha, the founder of Mecha, and so we've always had this, like, organizing spirit, and so we depend on each other, and we work with our community. Like, I had a neighbor who said, "My next door neighbor is afraid to go take some paperwork in because they're not sure if this is going to be the last time they're going to see their family." So I ran it by Senator Escamilla, who's, specializes in immigration. She goes, "No, I think this is legit." And I received a text message from my constituent, and she said, "Hey, this family's safe. It was just a routine check-in, so we're okay." But people are afraid just to even do those routine check-ins. And as you mentioned, the market in West Valley, we live in the Salt Lake City area of our district, but we're also seeing that impact all the small businesses around my house too. These little markets, workers aren't showing up because they're afraid they're going to get, the ICE is going to come in and arrest them. People don't want to shop there, and so and we don't know what to do. We do the best we can to prepare people,
And
but
then
what
what are your
can you say?
Republican peers saying about this? Because the backbone of America is supposed to be small businesses. We see so many of these small businesses. I just started one as a Latino. I'm part of the statistics now in this country. We are entrepreneurs. We have this entrepreneurial spirit. What are your peers, Republican peers, saying about trying to protect the small businesses in this country that are supposed to be the backbone?
And Nick, if I can jump on this one, I
Sure.
think part of the question about what are we telling our constituents, it's hard. So we are asking for emergency preparedness. We're talking that every family that's a Latino family need to be prepared for the worst case scenario. Even if you're a U.S. citizen, I'm preparing with my family what could happen if I get arrested or my husband gets arrested as a Latino. So I mean, it could happen to anyone. That's the unfortunately what we're like telling people: be prepared. What does that mean? You have
That's
all
the
your
change now,
documents.
that anyone can get it.
And anyone can get it. So prepare with your documents, especially families that will have to make decisions of legal guardianship, of your mortgages, right? I mean, what happens if the main provider has to leave the country? Are you prepped for that? And all the debt that, because we all incur debt as part of being an American and living in America. What happens to that? So that is one thing, is the emergency preparedness. Make sure you have an immigration attorney on your speed dial to call, explaining people their constitutional rights. Not that they're respecting their constitutional rights, but at least they can, and people to record this. I mean, I am
Yes.
so happy to see people just coming forward and recording and asking, "Hey, stop!" Just that part of America is great, and I'm proud to be an American because of that. But what happens to the business is the next question, and what's happening to conversations with our colleagues now is translating into the business impact, right? It's taking a minute because it takes a minute to have the that all those effects, side effects of what's happening. So
Yeah.
one is workers. They're disappearing. So now the employers are like, someone needs to help me here because I don't have workers. In Utah, we have one of the lowest unemployment rates in the country. Actually,
Wow.
sometimes we are the lowest unemployment rate, less than 2%. Our unemployment rate is, we need workers. So when you have qualified workers that cannot work because they're afraid of going to their workplace, and this is construction specifically, farms. So farming in Utah is critical. And we support our farming community, of course, our farmers. Well, they can, I mean, milk, like it's all these industries that are begging right now. And Representative Romero and I were in a meeting 2 days ago, precisely, with one of the members of our congressional delegation. And we had, farmers there saying, let me tell you the impact on our farms. And it's real. And they're like,
Are they
this farm,
throwing numbers out there, Senator? Are
they are
they
throwing numbers on their small communities of workers that they've lost. I mean, this woman was talking about her own father that has to now, 76-year-old, farmer that has always worked with workers that were, immigrants coming,
sure?
and it's like they're not longer there. They're afraid. They're running away because they're so scared. Now is the 76-year-old man trying to cover the work of 2 to 3 employees. I mean, impossible. So
Impossible at that
yeah,
age. I mean, you
at that
couldn't do it
age.
for a young man. Yeah.
Exactly. And they've been very clear. We've tried hiring everyone, kind of like what you consider is a mainstream citizen, whatever the case is,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
like they don't want those jobs.
No, they don't want the jobs. They don't show up. I was just with the grape pickers. They didn't show up there,
Yeah.
Representative Romero. It's not like white Americans are taking these jobs. We have this sort of open secret in this country. Undocumented labor helps out the bottom line for these businesses that are maximizing profits. And then it sounds good to kick out the criminals, but they're not just kicking out the criminals or the bad hombres. They're kicking out the cooks. They're kicking out people that are contributing every day to our country. One of the women that I interviewed in my report, the mom who's on the run by the ICE agent, last year paid $50,000 in taxes. She's asking me, why doesn't this state want my money? What am I doing so wrong? So, you know, I want to, because I have you guys here. You guys are having discussions, making laws, pushing back on policies. One of the things I wanted to talk to you guys about was the Sensitive Locations Act. And it seems like your Republican colleagues care about bathrooms. They care about keeping kids safe, about who goes into the bathroom, but they don't care about keeping kids safe when they see these militarized ICE agents show up at their schools. Tell me about efforts that are being made right now in the Utah legislature that are immigration oriented, and some of the things that you're trying to play, kung fu on here to keep away from landing as being everyday part of the society here.
Yeah, this last year in West Valley in particular, it was a bill with West Valley. They wanted to, if somebody got pulled over, they wanted to impound their car if they didn't have a driver's license. And we were able to defeat that bill in the Senate under the leadership of Senator Escamilla. But I want to go back to that woman, the business owner who was meeting with us 2 days ago, and we were
Yes.
surrounded by members in the business community. She said it was either her brother or her husband. He went to go check in on one of the workers, and there was nobody there. And they found out that their worker had been disappeared, that their work had been taken, and then they went to hire someone else to do that same job, but then that person was also picked up. And so we see this really impacting us. And I heard someone say something, and I kind of agree with that. They're like, if you don't support immigrants, then don't go to a Mexican restaurant, don't go to a store that has people cooking in the back that are Latino. Just don't go. But the
Right.
other thing I remind my colleagues all the time when we're on the House floor is like, do you know who cleans these buildings? These buildings we serve in, these buildings, these halls we walk in every day when we leave? I can tell you, Latinos. Do you know who's building this big, humongous building in back of our building? It's going to be a museum. It's going to be a place. Latinos. And so we are the United States of America. And I always have to remind people of that. When the Mormon pioneers came here to Utah, I'm not of the predominant religion. This was a territory of Mexico. And
Mm.
so the Mexican government embraced people and said, yes, you're here to stay. And so the same people that share these halls with me, which is majority of the people I serve with, their ancestors came here because they were being politically persecuted. And so for a long time, we saw that sentiment here in the legislature. But once Trump was elected, and especially this last election, we've just seen some of our colleagues, not all, it's a small few, be very boldened to say racist, horrible, ugly things on Twitter, and they're not just picking on Latinos, as you said, they're picking on trans kids. They're just picking
Yeah.
on people that are marginalized. And
Yes.
we're small here. I serve in there's 75 members in the House, and there's only 14 Democrats, and I lead that caucus. And Senator Escamilla serves in the Senate. There's 29 senators, and there's 6 Democrats in the Senate. But
Wow.
we fight and we stand up for people because the people of Utah need to know that someone's here to stand up for all Utahns, not just a select few. And so that's what we continue to do up here. So immigration is the topic we're talking about now, but there are a lot of issues that are impacting Utah that we'll always stand up for. And that if that means we don't pass a bill, we don't pass a bill, because I'd rather stand up for people and speak the truth than be too cautious. And right now we have to stand up for our people.
I'm so honored to be joined. If you're just joining us, I'm so honored to be joined by State Senator Luz Escamilla, who became the first immigrant elected to the Utah State Legislature, and her colleague, her peer, and the House side, Representative Angela Romero. She has a national position with the state legislators. And we're talking about the immigration impact on Utah and how quietly Utah has been playing a part in Trump's mass deportation policy. It was even before we saw these raids happen and really pick up this summer in Los Angeles that your governor had suggested to the president that he remove sort of barriers to make it easier for ICE to deport people. We're also seeing the offering of National Guard troops to help out with Trump potentially using National Guardsmen and women to police Americans. Can you talk about that? And can you talk about your reaction when you saw the governor sort of your governor jump on the mass deportation bandwagon?
Nick, I think that's a key conversation, and I'll say this: we value the separation of branches of government between the executive branch and the legislative branch, and I think Representative Romero has been addressing some of the dynamics within our 104 member legislature. That's a lot of people, and I appreciate that she mentioned not all of our colleagues feel the same way.
Yeah, that's good faith.
In this case, yeah. In all fairness to the many members of the majority that have joined in with us in trying to stop really regressive and hurtful policies that hurt not only our economy but hurt families, and that's something that we deeply value in Utah. And we remind our colleagues, right, how much are we going to put our money where our mouth is when it comes to family values. So I think that dynamic in Utah has allowed us to have a driving privilege card, in-state tuition, and to continue to bring the concept of families as a priority. It's getting more difficult. This was the most difficult session for me, at least in the last 17 years that I've been a senator. So with regards to the comments of our Governor Cox, and both of us have conveyed our disappointment and our concern with his comments, multiple comments related to immigration. I think it sometimes is a political decision they're making, very calculated based on a campaign, right? It being an election year, or supporting, in this case, the man that is right now in the White House, right?
Yeah.
So it's just hard sometimes to even mention his name. But
I understand. And Dios no separa las familias. Dios no separa. You know,
So
that's what
that
one
is
of the
very
people that
true.
I
Yeah.
was talking to. For those people who stand behind the values of a higher power, who
And
stand
familia,
behind
right? And familia. Yeah.
and familia. We know this as Latinos, how family has been so important to my success. I always say I had such a benefit and privilege of having a great family. There should have been no reason I wasn't successful. You know, my family is everything to me. And you see these families that are being ripped apart, who are moving in good faith, who have been here for decades, who have been here in this country as long as you've been serving in the legislature. And yet, Representative Romero, they're being targeted as being the criminals in this country for what equates only as a misdemeanor and
Mhm.
civil offense. Can you
And
speak
that's
on that?
I just think that is the frustrating part, and I think this fear, I see that my son's 28 now, and we grew up in Glendale, of course, and he grew up in Glendale, and Glendale's very diverse,
Of
and
course.
one of his best friends, I mean, he hasn't left home because he wants to make sure his parents are safe, and what this friend was always worried about, like, "Am I gonna come home and my parents gonna be there?" And this is the reality that many of the young people that we represent, many of the families we represent feel every day, and you think about this kid who has a master's degree, who's contributing to our economy here in Utah, is still and he's DACA, and he still doesn't have citizenship. I have young people that have interned for me. I've had young people who live in my neighborhood who all they know is this country. This is their home, and they're proud of this being their home. And yet, there's no pathway to citizenship, and that's what we tell our colleagues here up at the Capitol. We as state legislators shouldn't be implementing policy. This has to be done at a federal level. And I'm tired of our congressional members sitting on their hands, and our president, regardless of which president it is, sitting on their hands. I am the president of the National Hispanic Caucus of State Legislators, and we work with the Biden administration, and we got all our members to push on the Biden administration to do an executive order for longstanding citizens, and that he did do the executive order, but then it was struck down by the courts in Texas. And so there has been progress. We have worked on progress. We have been on the front line doing the policy because at times it can be frustrating for our constituents. It can be frustrating for community members because the process of institutions is so complicated and people don't they don't it's hard to understand. It's even hard for us to understand ourselves. And so it's been really frustrating. I mean, I do have hope that there is movement at a congressional level to do something. But then when you have Donald Trump let Steve Miller do whatever he wants, that
Yeah.
hope slowly fades away and people are feeling hopeless. They're feeling we have members that are self-deporting, and it's unfortunate when you wake up one day and your neighbor is gone and you don't know if they've been disappeared or if they self-deported, and you don't know what's going to happen to them and their families. And so for me, it's not about the economy. For me, it's not about all these other things. It's about protecting the families of Utah that are the backbone of Utah, that get up every day to make sure that we have the luxuries and the privileges we have. Because the Latino community is the backbone of Utah. The immigrant community, regardless if they're Latino, are the backbone of the state of Utah. And we have this quote unquote pioneer spirit, but we're not showing it lately.
And even the people that are trying to do it the right way. I mean, I think about my friend, journalist here, Mario Guevara, who's still in custody and has been in custody for more than 70 days. He had a green card. He had the right to work legally in this country. And yet ICE is still holding him. He was detained because he was, got in the way, according to the cops, during a No Kings protest here. ICE got him on a detainer and he's been in custody ever since. And this is a person that, quote unquote, was doing it the right way. Somebody who leans conservative, and that's one of the questions I wanted to ask you guys. You are generationally from Utah, Representative Romero. You're from that region, that area, Senator Escamilla. I'm sure you know Latinos who voted for President Trump. Are
Yes.
you guys hearing, what do you hear from that section of the community? Because I get this question all the time, being Latino in the South, generational, like, how could Latinos vote for Trump? Do you guys get that question? What do you say, and what do you talk to? What are those conversations like with your Latino peers who are more conservative Trump voters?
Well, Nick, I'll say this. I was walking to Rancho Market, which is a very large store. There's 10 sites. They hired 600 people in this company here in Utah that started in Utah by a Mexicana de Chacanilla de Mexicali, Baja California. And I walk in the store, and one of the managers that I've known her for years is in Rose Park, which is where we live. My family lives. And she comes to me and she said, "Senator, I've been thinking so much about you lately, because the day after the elections, you were in an interview with the Spanish media and you said, se van a dar de golpes en la pared los que votaron por este hombre." And I remember being so upset that I did say that, which was probably not very appropriate. I was angry and I was upset because I'm like, can you not see how this is going to impact you? And it's to see those families that are literally, they've called me and said, I made a mistake and it's going to take 4 more years for me to fix this, because now they're being harassed. Like their children are being harassed. Themselves are being harassed in their workplace, by the way. The amount of hate crime, of increase on hate crime that we've seen against Latinos and immigrants in general, in the stores, in the restaurants, people now feel completely okay with saying the most disgusting things to humans.
You know what's happening here in Atlanta, Senator? They're targeting the construction crews that are Latino.
Mhm.
And a big thing that's happening throughout the course of the city is that there are these small opportunistic criminals that think, okay, here is a crew that has maybe mixed status or contractors here that have cash. We're going to target them because what are they going to do? They're not going to report the crimes. These crimes, I think, are part of the atmosphere of what's going on here in this country. Representative Romero, for you to get in here, I want to hear what you have to say about this part of the conversation. Are you seeing similar sort of regrets from
I'm
people?
not you know what's interesting, again, as my family is from New Mexico, so we never crossed the border, and I'm a Shoshone Bannock. I'm an enrolled member of my tribe, and so the conversations are a little bit different. And unfortunately, I don't see the same empathy from some of the people that I'm related to who always voted Democrat, but then when it came to abortion and some of these other issues, they decided to vote Republican. And I'm not seeing them having any empathy for our brothers and sisters that are from mixed status families or who have come here looking for a better opportunity, because this is the United States of America. It's supposed to be the land of the free, the
Yes.
land of opportunity, and that myth of the meritocracy, because I believe meritocracy is a myth, and people have that hope, and they have that hope of the American dream. And it's unfortunate there are some people that I'm even related to that are fine with what's going on, and it's infuriating. And I don't necessarily spend time with them anymore. And so you see that divide within our community, because you also see that divide with some of our community members who came here, been working hard for their status, and then they saw people from other places that were leaving, were being persecuted, come here, be able to get a work visa. And so you saw that divide even before this current administration.
Yes.
See that on the Texas border and some of these other border states where people have been trying and trying to get their citizenship, and then they see other people or some kind of legal status, and they see other people come in because of that political persecution. And you saw that divide happen even there. But then you have old school Chicanos, like I identify as Chicana, and you see them not, because they've been assimilated, they don't have any connection or tie, or they don't think they do, to people who are aspiring to be citizens. So it's frustrating. And so we're not a monolithic community as Latinos, but at the end of the day, nobody can tell the difference between me, you, or Senator Escamilla. They just see another brown person.
Yeah.
It
And I
doesn't
get
matter this suit that I've got on, I mean, the amount of times that I've been asked why I speak English so good. Why you speak English so good, or like people treat me like I just crossed the Rio Grande. I'm a third generation. There's a lot of somos muy parecidos, huh, Representative Romero? I'm third generation. My family never crossed a border. My grandfathers, both of them immigrated here illegally. One from El Salvador, one from Guatemala. You cannot argue that I'm not contributing to society or that I'm adding value to society. And yet there's some people that are going to hold that against me, like they think there's a conversation right now in the country about ending birthright citizenship. That's one of the things that I talk to of these kids. That's one of the other parts of this conversation I want to ask you, because it's a big, big issue. The youth seem to be gravitating towards conservatives. The youth seem to be inspired by Trump, who they look at as some sort of late night comedian. At least they talk about him like that. Like, oh, he's funny, but he goes a little too far sometimes. This is the leader of the free world. So what are the efforts being made from Democrats right now, because I saw in the comment section, they think that the Democrats are playing too nice, right? Democrats need to be more aggressive. And we're seeing Gavin Newsom kind of play that Trump game. What are the Democrats doing right now to try to go after those younger voters, those voters that may see a guy like Trump and be in love with his short deliverable phrases and his toxic masculinity?
Nick, I'll say this: we've had a couple of conferences where both Representative Romero and myself and other Latino elected officials have been participating in the last month, and it's interesting to see both. Some of them are, affiliate themselves as Republicans. Others, the vast majority of Latino electeds are Democrats, but not all. But it's good to have these interactions. One is to recognize that both parties have failed our Latino community, the Hispanic Latino community voters. Period. But it's interesting when, Representative Romero is talking about her experience and what she's seeing. And for example, in my case, a little bit different is because we all have very different experiences, but to see the Latinos that have voted for Trump, especially the new Americans, the first ones to come here, naturalized citizens like myself, to now say, la regué, o sea, la regué, and I'm not going to use the other word they use because it's so bad. To see is because now it's hitting home. It's going to take a minute to hit every other generation. I mean, like, it's going to get to all of us. So now the question is this: both parties need to be responsible, and we whether like us as Democrats in the Democratic Party, as leaders in the party, and Republicans in their own party, they have to push, because the reality is they both have failed and they're not addressing our needs. Now, the needs are beyond immigration, clearly, but right now, as we speak, they are picking up children. Right? I mean, so remember our conversation 6-7 months ago. We were like, they're going to go after criminals. I mean, it's going to be scary. Families are going to be separated.
It's not just the
And
criminals.
now it's like
it's the
chaos.
children. Yeah,
You would have never, I can guarantee you, if we go back 6-7 months and I will tell you, Nick, this is going to be horrible. They're going to be picking up children from schools that are U.S. citizens. You'll be like, you're crazy, Senator. That's unconstitutional. It is happening now. So it has shifted. So I think, to answer your question about this younger, and it's true, they are turned to be more conservative, especially men, Latino men, more conservative. They're the ones that gave a bunch of the votes to Trump. That
Yes.
Latina women, we were not as persuaded as the men were. So, escuchen a las mujeres. Listen
Presta
la mujer
atención,
sabe. I'm
hombres.
just saying. I mean, the data shows that I think this is now gonna shift completely. I mean, I've met those people that went that conservative, and they're like, they're embarrassed. They're like, well, I mean, yeah, it's been horrible. I can't believe this. And then they call us, right? They call Angela. I mean, I get the phone calls from, you know, I'm a registered Republican, but they pick up my daughter's husband. I mean, like, the stories are tons of those stories, and I'm thinking, exactly, like, we have the government we picked, right? I mean, like, collectively as a society.
Yeah.
And we have to be accountable and responsible for that. So we are supposed to be educating our children on what's happening. We have to have these very difficult, tough conversations. And as a mom of college age kiddos, including one that's at the University of San Francisco, that is the conversations they're having. I'm telling you, I have hope. Our former interns, many of them kids, of communities of color, they're fed up. And I think they're because they're seeing how they're treating their parents, their own. I mean, as U.S. citizens, I think it's going to change. I do believe there's going to be a shift in that.
Well, if there's one thing that I think that you said that really hammered the point home, is that people need to be personally impacted by this before they care. A couple of weeks ago, I was out along with Victoria Hopkins, who works with our team. She's on the chat as well. We tried to ask people about the ICE raids. And the video ended up being everybody that just passed right by and said, no, thank you. No, thank you. No, no. It's almost like it's not until somebody gets personally impacted that they're really going to pay attention to what's going on. And every day, more and more people are personally impacted by this. I know at least 3 people that are currently in custody who I know personally, who are undocumented and are now in custody and going through the system. I also know people who voted for Trump and who really like what they're seeing. And I had a conversation. I have conversations with Trump voters on a weekly basis, if not on a daily basis, because as a journalist, I think it's my obligation to get the prevailing wisdom. Somewhere along the way, Representative Romero, compassion and empathy became a dirty word.
Mhm.
It became something that you're not supposed to have because it could be weaponized against you. How did Trump become the best of the best that we have to offer? Where are the other politicians? Who should we be looking at right now that has that gravitas in the Democratic Party?
I just think, Gavin Newsom, I mean, he's, well, not one of my favorites, but for him to stand up and to speak out and just how he's coming back, I've never been wanting to be one of those people that clap backs like that, but I think in the current political climate, that's the only way you're gonna be able to do things. A lot of people have left.
Are you guys, to pick up on that point, are you guys having to change your approach now? I mean, because we're seeing Newsom, a whole new different Newsom. Are you guys looking at your
No,
strategies and approaches?
because what Newsom is, I've always been. Again, I was the president of Metro, so Luce knows this. When we were in college, I was the radical one. She
I
was
love
the
it.
one that she would be the one to rein me in because I was like very idealistic and I was always thinking outside the box. But for me, I think we have to give people a reason to believe in something. We have to connect with people, and I think this is one thing that Senator Escamilla and I do well, is we're always in the community. We just don't go in the communities to get votes and to wave at people. We're always embedded in the community, and I think that's why there's people that don't like us. There's always gonna be people that don't like you because you're an elected official and you belong to a political party, but I can tell you, our communities love us. I went to, an event at the Sorensen Center. It's a community center, and we were honoring this guy named Leo Chicano who had coached boxing there. And you had older Chicanos come out, people my age because I'm in my 50s, and a younger generation, and they reminded me, they're like, "You are our voice, and thank you for being there, and thank you to Senator Escamilla for being there." And so we have to remember why we ran for elected office because we ran to serve the people. It's not about our egos. It's not about being on the spotlight. It's not about doing news interviews. It's about truly representing that voice for the people. And my late mentor, the Archie Archuleta, who's a legend out here in Utah, he always told me, he goes, sometimes you're going to have to stand alone. But if you stand up for what's right, that's okay. And so I think that's what we're doing at times. When we had the anti-DEI legislation, people were afraid to talk and people were afraid to push back. But we shared our stories, and I'm like, I'm a product of DEI. I wouldn't be in college because of that. And it's
Oh, they
because
would call it
of
affirmative action before for
yeah,
me, right? I was an
yeah.
affirmative action kid, right?
Yeah,
Or
I was
whatever.
we were affirmative action, but the point is it was where we met. So Senator Escamilla and we come from different backgrounds. I'm a Chicana. I grew up with cholos and lowriders. I mean, she grew up crossing the border to come to school,
Wow.
but we met at college, and we met because of the Center for Ethnic Student Affairs, because that was a safe space for us where we could talk about our experiences, because we were going to college in the early 2000s when there weren't many of us there. And so we needed a space where we could feel safe. And if it wasn't for that place, neither of us would probably be on this call right now, because that's where we met community leaders. And so we have to create those spaces for young people. So how are we going to change things? Is we have to create those spaces. We have to create those opportunities for younger people. We have to do the mentoring. And that's one thing that the former vice president, I got invited to one of her holiday parties, and I took Senator Escamilla with me to that party. And we had just barely been elected the leaders of our caucus. It's the first time two Latinas have ever led our caucus. The first time women of color have ever led our caucus. And she stopped that line when we were in that line, and because I told her, "Hey, Madam Vice President, we're leaders of our caucus," and she reminded us that just because we broke these glass ceilings, that didn't mean that we didn't have to build benches. And so that's why we're here today. We want people to see us. We want to see people see us in these leadership positions, and we want people to know that we're building those benches, whether it's combating the ugliness right now we're seeing when it comes to immigration, or whether it's providing opportunities for families like ours. Like, we have very different backgrounds, but people don't know that. People don't know that Luz is the first immigrant to ever be elected to the state of Utah, or I'm the first Native American, but I also was raised by my maternal side. I'm Chicana. And but we're here to let people know that we're their voice and that we can't always be their voice. And so that's why we're going to mentor people. But we've lost we've lost our way as Democrats. We don't connect to people anymore. We get caught up in the political theater. And so right now what we're doing is we're organizing. We're going in our districts. We're door knocking. We're not up for election, but we're saying, what are your state concerns? What can we do to help you? What can we do to help your family? We're creating spaces for young people to get involved. And that's the only way we're going to change this. And, I never thought I would agree with Gavin Newsom, but we have to also punch back.
Mhm.
Well,
And if we
the
don't punch
future is
back,
female.
Yeah.
You're clearly showing us what the example is. You're showing the example by not only showing up when it's election time for re-election, but actually being in the community. And one of the things I'm picking up also is you don't like the table. There's not enough room. Build a bigger
Oh,
table.
yeah.
Build a bigger table. And the other thing, the third thing that really you're showing to our viewers is that the outreach that happens that needs to happen within the generations of our community. You come from different lived experiences and perspectives. You talk about Senator Escamilla, literally the duality is her reality, crossing the border. You, as a Chicana, growing up in the environment and atmosphere, still making it as a first generation college student, that those lived experiences, and we look like each other, right? No one's going to distinguish us. If there's an ICE agent right here, no one's going to say, well, that one is the first generation, that one's second, that one's third. We need to do a better job of building that bridge across the generational gap. That's one of the things that is so evident and clear to me, having come from California, being dropped here in the South, is that I look around, that line about being alone that your mentor talked to you about, I had felt so alone out here. I had felt like a pioneer in the field as a third generation Chicano out here who speaks English better than Spanish, though, whose duality is his reality. It's like we live in this undiscovered country in this world as generational Latinos. We had a guest on a couple weeks ago, Cristian Ramos. He's a Democratic strategist. He's like, what are people supposed to make of me? I look like a paisa, but I read literature. I'm a college educated guy who lives in the suburbs, but like we don't understand. And there needs to be a better through line to connect. I want to get back to policy now that I'm off my soapbox here. I want to get back to the 287G program. We have in Utah at least 7 different sheriff's departments offices that have agreed to basically and effectively be deputized as ICE agents and help out ICE in targeting people that look like you and me. What are you hearing about that? Are you surprised that it's that few, that many? What's your take on this? So we'll start with Senator Escamilla.
Thanks, Nick, for that question. So I'll say this. I think the agencies, you're correct, they're sheriff's offices which have the county jails attached to them. So all of them have been very public, by the way, because they have gone through some of public hearings on this decision making, and I've been happy to see the reaction of the public at large. Not only the immigrant community like Latinos, which we are the largest in the state of communities, racial and ethnic minority communities, but we also have a very large Asian community. The Pacific Islander community is very large. If you were in West Valley, is the second largest city. Is the second city in the world that has more Polynesians after Hawaii.
I noticed.
So yeah, so I mean, it is. So I mean, we have a very diverse communities in the state, but to see mainstream, our the white community coming out and say we don't want this, but then being very specific on the role of that 287G on those offices is mostly jail related, so they can process individuals that are out of status. Now, it doesn't make it better. The optics speaks for themselves a lot, right? And we know that. You're already terrified, and now you know that the sheriff, whoever is the sheriff or Unified Police Department, happens to be in a 287G status. You're now even terrified 10 times more.
Yes.
So we've conveyed, we meaning some of us, including Representative Romero and myself, to some of these agencies are concerned. They have promised that they're just keeping it for purposes of incarceration and jails. So I don't know of any law enforcement agency, meaning police departments, that are doing 287G. I know they are the jail related ones, which are sheriff. What we
Well,
call
Salt Lake City, their sheriff's department, they sent us back a statement because they're
Salt
not
Lake
one
County.
of them.
Yeah,
Salt Lake County, they're not one of them.
yeah, they're not
And
one of them.
we were like, hey, are you going to consider this? Not to ask you to become part of this program, but why isn't it that you're
Yeah,
Not fun.
and I think so. What also is the blue dot in the Red Sea, Nick, and that's also understanding the politics of Utah, right? So if you look at Utah, we're a pretty large state in terms of like territory, but our population is mostly urban. It's what we call the Wasatch Front. About almost 2.5 million out of the 3.5 are in that kind of like urban Wasatch Front area. Our metro, what we refer as a metro area. And that includes Salt Lake County, which is the blue dot in the Red Sea. All of our 20 Democrats that are elected out of 104 legislators happen to represent Salt Lake County. So, I mean, it is worth to mention that certainly who is elected in those areas look very different from the rest of the state. That certainly plays a role in this. But I also think it's important to mention let me tell you where we're going to start seeing real impact, not
Yeah,
only on
please.
this administration with regards to immigration, but on every other policy that is some of the worst policies ever, including this reconciliation bill that was a joke and a horrible legislation that doesn't take effect until 2027 because they're so afraid of the impact on the 2026 election cycle. Look how they're trying to, persuade people like that. But the reality is cutting our safety net programs at the rate that we're going to do it, it has never been done before. We're going to leave more than 35 million people in this country without insurance. And it disproportionately will impact our communities, which is pathetic, right? So please know again, the way the Department of Education is cutting now, the enforcement on English language learners for our children. And remember, the fact that you don't speak English as your first language doesn't mean you're an immigrant. This could are U.S. citizen children that maybe by choice they speak a different language at home. There's a lot of concerns that they're going to be losing the opportunity to learn English at school because those programs are being faded. So know that we're going to start seeing this on food security with the SNAP impact, healthcare with Medicaid, the ACA. I mean, like Obamacare, people that are in the market buying their insurance will not be able to do it. Many of them are small business owners that happen to be Latino. So this impact is going to be across all of our healthcare, financial security, and public safety.
I'm so glad that you brought up Medicaid, Senator Escamilla, because when we're going down to Florida, we've been really instrumental at breaking news around Alligator Alcatraz, the Dade Collier Transition and Training Center. And one of the stories that we're going to cover while we're down there is the tens of millions of Latinos that are going to lose their Medicaid. I mean, this mostly of children that are going to be impacted, impoverished children. We're getting close here on time. I'm sorry, Representative Romero, would love to get your comments here on the 287G program or anything else that you'd like to talk about.
Well, I'd like to point out that West Valley City and Salt Lake City also don't participate in it, and they fall under Salt Lake County. And it was nice to see in Utah County, the community from Utah County come and push back. And they had testimony because they were talking about joining, and everyone that went to testify, and majority of those people were from the predominant community here, were against it. And so it's good to see, as Senator Escamilla said, the everyday person in Utah say, like, I don't like this. And it's unfortunately because our state has been gerrymandered, and you see that even in our representation up here at the Capitol, that a lot of times what the people of Utah feel is not how we vote or not the legislation that we run. And so that's why it's so important for people to get involved in the political process, because there are seats we lose by 200 votes, 100 votes or less, that could really change the way that we do policy up here at the state level.
Wow.
So I think
We're
it's
going,
important for people to know that.
we're going after the non-voters on this program. We are not trying to convert. We're not trying to say, hey, you voted for Trump. Estamos aquí con cariño, come here. I'm trying to reach the people that aren't going out there to vote, the people that think that their vote doesn't matter, to whom I tell, look, there wouldn't be old white people trying to change and gerrymander your districts if voting didn't matter. There wouldn't be old rich people trying to make sure that it's harder for you to vote if your vote did not matter. So we want to get more people involved. I asked you that question about the youth because I really see it. I'm 41 years old. I feel old now, right? I'm aging out in some of these things. These damn kids, when they cover journalism or do certain things, I see the curiosity. I see the passion still there. And I also see the lethargy as well. I see the indifference towards political parties. We saw it in the chat saying, Democrats are complicit in this. I don't know what the answer is, and I don't claim to have the solutions. I'm up here to ask the questions to see what you guys are doing about it. But one big takeaway I had from here is that you guys are doing the work. You guys are in the community, and we are so grateful to have you guys here join us. Last question to each of you. Is there anything that I haven't asked you that you think is important to know, or anything that you'd like to talk about, immigration related or not? Make a plug. We're just so happy that you guys took the time out of your busy schedules to come on the show here. Senator Escamilla?
Thank you, Nick, and thank you for what you're doing. We do follow and your work, and we're getting information through your work of what's happening in other parts of the country. So know that we are, as states, we are trying our best to protect first, obviously, our state and our districts, but then we recognize we're part of this great union, and this is our country. I will just end with that. We all are Americans, and it takes a minute when you're a naturalized citizen. I'll speak as someone where there's always people questioning your loyalty or your accent or where are you from. The fact that we are part of this of everything that's happening here. Our children are in the schools. They're participating. Our families. We pay taxes. I pay a mortgage, a car payment, my credit card. I mean, we're all embedded on this, so we belong. And right now, the plan is to make everyone feel like they're not part of this country, that they don't belong. So they end up doing, including the self-deportation. We recognize immigration is a very complex issue, and every case is different. But the fact that right now, U.S. citizens and naturalized citizens like myself, now they're asking of whether they can change and take away their citizenship. The next ones will be everyone else. So like it's coming to all of us. So it is in our best interest to protect our freedoms, our rights, and this country was based on that, right? Of everyone to be part of somewhere, to belong somewhere. So I want to invite everyone to participate and to keep getting educated and to always know that if it's happening to someone, their neighbor, the next city, because maybe they're in the right part of town, right? Because we have also those disparities. You will be next. I mean, that will happen. Thank you.
Senator Escamilla, thank you so much. Representative Romero, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I think we just need to give people, again, a reason to believe in something and provide people hope. Because a lot of people right now feel hopeless and they feel othered and they're just walking around and they're frustrated and they don't believe in any political party. So we're here to say, I don't care how you vote. I just want you to vote and I want you to get involved. But always remember that we're all humans. And when I get cut, I bleed the same color that anyone else bleeds. And so I think it's really important that people know that there are people here in Utah that are fighting for the rights of everyone, not just immigrants. We're talking about trans kids. We're talking about LGBTQ plus families. We're talking about working families. And I think most Latinos just want to know that they're elected officials and they want to know that they're there fighting for them. The economy impacted our community hugely.
Much, so
And
much.
when you talk about what the biggest issue for Latinos is, it's the economy. And
Yes.
so we need to start talking to people. We need to talk about the social determinants of health. If someone has a job, they have a roof over their head, they have access to health insurance, they have a way to get there, and they're going to want to be more involved in their community. But if you're working 3 or 4 jobs and you're just barely making ends meet and you're being treated like a dog, then you're not going to want to be involved. And so we're here to tell people that we want you to be involved. We value your voice and we see you.
Well, we see you, and we hope that you inspired some folks here on the chat or some folks out here that'll watch this later to go run for office. Do you guys have any, I guess this is the last question. What would you tell a Latino that wants to run for office?
Unapologetic, go for it. Don't expect anyone to ask you to do it. Just do it. Especially, I want to speak to the women, to Latina women. If you feel it in you that it's time, just do it. And it's hard, right? You're balancing everything because that's how we are as mamás y trabajadoras y todo.
Yeah.
It's gonna happen. I mean,
Pero son
it's the right of
superhéroes también, Senator.
all the time, and they usually have the right answer. So there, and if a man is smart enough, will know that. So women, I would just say, do not expect anyone to ask you. Just do it. If you feel it in your heart, it's the right time to do it. Unapologetic, without any permissions. Just go for it.
What about
I
you?
agree. And just to know, like, regardless of your political affiliation, there's going to be barriers and people in your way. When I wanted to run for leader, I ran for leader the first time and lost, and then I ran for leader again. But I had people within my own caucus who were the barriers because they had stereotypes about who I was, how I would appear on TV, and could people connect with me? And those were dog whistles. And so just because you're so quote unquote progressive doesn't mean you don't have those stereotypes and those um those feelings towards your own inherent biases. And so it's important that we hold people's feet to the fire, even the people that claim that they're progressive, because a lot of times they're worse than the people I have to that tell me they're racist. And so I just want to remind people that you have to keep on fighting and you have to keep on speaking up, because if you don't speak up, no one's going to speak up for you.
It's crabs in a bucket sometimes with Latinos, and if you guys don't know the crabs in a bucket mentality, I'll talk about that after the representatives and senator drop off. Thank you so much. I am sincerely so grateful. You made history on our program. First elected lawmakers that we had on Nick Valencia Live. I'm so
Thank you.
happy that it was the two of you. You are powerhouses, and you left me feeling really, really inspired. We'll connect after the show. God bless you guys. Thank you so much
Thank
for joining the
you.
show. We really appreciate it. Bye bye, guys. You drop off, I'll stay on, and we'll close out the show here. What'd you guys think of that? That was amazing. Rach is here off camera doing a puzzle. I'm not going to interrupt what's going on over there. She's got like a 2,000 piece puzzle, but she was locked in on this conversation. I hope you guys were too. That was such a great, powerful conversation with two women of color, two trailblazers, two people who are doing the work. I think elected representatives, politicians right now, they get a bad rap. Probably some for merit, some for good reason. Not those two. Those two I really felt. And it was so surprising what Representative Romero said at the end there about what the dog whistle was for her, that she couldn't connect. She was it was so easy to connect with the two of them. That was the first conversation that we had. I had texted a little bit with Representative Romero, but it's the first time I was talking to them. And I was so inspired by what they're doing, the fight that they're standing up for. Whether or not you're a Democrat or you're a Republican, somebody out there is standing up for our community, which is really, really fun to see and really good to see. We talked a lot about the small but sizable impact that Utah is playing on immigration. The governor's indication that he wants to help the president of the United States with National Guard troops, pledging that he'll send guardsmen. The 287G program, county jails, sheriff's departments, making it easy for them to detain somebody who's undocumented. The Sensitive Locations Act being repealed and the impact on education there in Utah. And then you have Republicans that are pushing through legislation that is more focused on bathroom safety. And we know that that's a dog whistle for trans community, going after trans people and trying to keep them in certain bathrooms. That is a sort of veiled message, or not so veiled message, that Republicans are sending there, that they care about the safety of kids when it comes to bathrooms, but not exposing them to militarized people with long guns or seeing a family ripped apart in front of their eyes. Right before we joined this broadcast, we saw videos of an American citizen reportedly being taken into custody by suspected federal agents. We're going to be looking into that. Next week, we have more conversations. Small business owner will be joining us on Tuesday, somebody from Los Angeles to talk about the raids going on there. And then the following week, we're going to take this back on the road. We're going to South Florida to go investigate further what's happening, the human rights abuses, the corruption allegations, and just, the overall lack of transparency at the Dade Collier Transition and Transportation Airport, TNT, famously known as Alligator Alcatraz. And then next week as well, we're going to be spending some time. You heard me talk about him, Mario Guevara. On Monday, I'm going to be heading to Mario Guevara's home to meet with his family, his daughter, his wife, and spend some time with them as they talk to him. He's been in custody for more than 70 days now. Initially arrested during a No Kings protest, where police indicated that he had obstructed or gotten in the way. I think some charge was that he wasn't walking on the sidewalk, and it was equivalent to jaywalking. He's taken into custody. An ICE detainer was put on him. He was transferred over to ICE, where he has been in their custody ever since. The family just gave an interview to local news where about a week ago, they said they thought this was going to be over in a matter of days. Just think about this for terms of context. The whole time that we have been doing this project that we've launched, Nick Valencia Live, Nick Valencia News, the whole time that we've been doing this, Mario Guevara has been in ICE custody. Insane. Guys, thank you so much for joining our broadcast. Thank you so much for joining this movement. There's a lot of stuff happening here, a lot of stuff going on in your life, and we don't take for granted that you take an hour out of your day, 30 minutes out of your day, a few minutes out of your day to just tune in and watch what we're doing, like it, share it. The only way that this can continue is by your support, guys. And we really, really are proud about what we're doing and the quality and the level of journalism that we're providing. I had no expectation of becoming an independent journalist. I had no plan that I was going to be doing this or sitting right here hosting shows from my dining room. But we're trying to meet the moment. We're trying to step up and meet this moment because we know that there are so many other things that we could be doing right now, but what's happening out there deserves a spotlight put on it. And if there's one thing that we know about this administration is that they don't like when you're putting a spotlight on what they want kept in the shadows. We're out there trying to focus on what's being done and making an impact. We hope in the short term, but we really hope in the long term. This is about being out there and being a voice of history and documenting what's happening in our country right now, because there's a lot, and we hope we're adding value. We're unbought, we're unafraid, we're unfiltered. This is the latest episode of Nick Valencia Live. Thanks for joining. Have a great day on purpose, everyone.